Joe Doc Moore, Tim Tingle, and I were in the process of establishing a storytelling Toastmasters Club in Austin. They said they were coming to George West for Storyfest. And so my curiosity was stirred up, and I came. It was the first time I came, and I came as an audience member, like some of you here today. And it was the year that Johnny Campbell, may he rest in peace, led the Cowboy Poets in poetry after barbecue dinner at the Live Oak County Fairgrounds. Then it was the year that Gail Ross came and was featured, and she told us a ghost story. That ghost story made me jump from my seat, which Tim and Doc thought was funny. But I didn't. Being a big old scaredy cat, I decided to leave early, and I went out of the fairgrounds onto 281 and barreled up. I drove up the road to the next town. And it was Three Rivers Finest who decided to show me their red, white, and blue lights. And so I pulled over, and the peace officer asked me where I was going to, and I said, San Antonio, and he said, well, where are you coming from, or where are you from? And I said, well, I just was at George West Storyfest, and Gail Ross told a real scary story, and I'm just trying to get home before the bewitching hour. And he said, well, we have speed limits here. And I said, I'm sorry, sir. And he proceeded to give me a warning. But that didn't stop me. The next year, I came back. I came back to Storyfest. And it was then that I met Becky Lynn Allen, the current 2021 CAI Terralingua International Chili Champion. Becky Allen invited me to come and tell stories, and that was the start. I got to come, and I came and I met some fine people, fine storytellers. Finley Stewart, the Beto Lopez, yes. And there was Doc Moore, J.J. Renault, Dennis Gaines, Joe Saunders, Jerry Young, and Johnny Campbell. May they all rest in peace. Then there were the people that I met here that helped put this together, like many of you are doing here today. There was Jim McGee and Melissa Nance. May they rest in peace. And so I came, and Becky decided to pursue chili competition. And she passed the reins to the director, Mary Margaret Campbell. And Mary Margaret invited me to come, and I came. I would like to thank the George West Storyfest Association, Dobie Beachos Group, all the school districts, the churches, everybody that have welcomed me here so that I may share my stories. I thank you so much. I'm very appreciative that I'm here to help celebrate the centennial of the Live Oak County Courthouse. Because as a fledgling storyteller, I used to stop and take pictures of churches and courthouses. So I'm very humbled that I am here today. Well, as it is, I would like to thank the city of George West. So in the spirit of keeping George West, the storytelling capital of Texas, here we go. Every time I take off from Interstate 37, going south to 281 to George West, I am always surprised at how the vegetation or a setting sun is going to express itself. The land around here is not very forgiving, and also it is compassionate, very compassionate. And as you get close to George West, you'll see brush and bushes, And when it is the season, they flourish with beautiful colors of fuchsia and indigo and magentas and lilac and lavender and even Mexican purple. The color purple relates to nobility, to royalty, but at the same time it relates to spirituality. And perhaps this legend may be why. Cuando el niño nació en Belén, when the baby was born in Bethlehem, three men came, men who studied the stars. They came from the east, and they followed the brightest star in the sky, and they were bearing gifts. And wherever they traveled, they asked where they could find this baby. See, they believed that he was the Messiah, the future king of the Jews. El niño se llamaba Jesús. The baby was called Jesus, baby Jesus. And King Herod heard about this ancient prophecy of the Messiah being born in Judea. King's country, in his country. And this made him very angry. So angry that he wanted to destroy him. So he sought some help. He met secretly with the three men that were bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. He met with them and said, go find a newborn child and bring him here so that I can know where he is at. I would like to go and worship him. And so the three wise men began their journey. When they delivered the gifts, well now, they were received very well. But you see, they warned the three men that Herod was going to destroy the baby. And so the three wise men proceeded to go home by a different path, a different way. But still, Joseph and Mary heard the news. And Joseph took Mary and baby Jesus away from Bethlehem, away across the borders of Judea country, and away they went towards Egypt. And the journey was long and hard. But they traveled, always hiding from the soldiers that Herod had sent. Well, wherever they went, strangers saw them, and people didn't talk to them. They thought, these are strange travelers. They didn't offer shelter. They didn't offer food. They didn't even offer water. But as it was, they were strong, and they traveled on. At last, one day, Mary could go no further. She was very thirsty. And so they pulled over to the side of the road. And baby Jesus needed to be fed. The donkey was thirsty too. So Mary began to feed baby Jesus. Meanwhile, Joseph went to the nearby village to see if he could get some water. Mary waited very patiently. And lo and behold, suddenly she heard wails of cries, and she heard the thunders, soldiers, horses, hosts. And she knew the soldiers were coming. She knew if they found Mary and baby Jesus, the baby Jesus would not be spared. There would be no mercy. And so she saw a bush nearby, and it was a rose bush. And she went to the rose bush and said, will you give me refuge? And Rose said, oh, I am afraid that the soldiers will crush me. So, no. She saw another bush. It was a clove bush. And it had little flourishes of blossoms. And she asked Clove for help. And Clove says, I am too busy blooming. And so she went on and saw a purple bush. And she went and asked for help. And that bush began to flourish in little flowers, and they made a canopy of flowers to protect Mary and baby Jesus. And the leaves of the bush also did their job, and they covered as well. Well, they heard the soldiers' footsteps, and when they did, the leaves began to quiver with fear. When the soldiers came by, they didn't see Mary and baby Jesus, and they just kept on walking. And so, Mary and baby Jesus were saved. And when Joseph came back, they proceeded to go on further on their journey. There was a special angel called Michael that would join them in teaching them how to get to Egypt the most quickest way possible. And they all went and traveled together. So you see, today, when you see a rose bush, you will find that it has thorns. When you see a clove bush, you will see that its blooms have a harsh odor. And when you see a sage, a purple sage with its lovely blooms, you will know that it is a sacred plant. For it is a sacred plant, and some of us believe it has powerful healing qualities. So you here in George West, Three Rivers, in Livo County, are surrounded by all of those sage, the Texas sage, and when in season it blooms so beautifully. So you see, you are blessed living here. Very blessed, as says this story, and it says the legend of the sage.